Okay. Well, I guess maybe he'll catch up afterwards. Okay. So stuff happened. What happened during the month? I'm very happy to say that Rosetta/Mesh API is now done. Um, so now I still need to do some very small finishing touches. Uh, but long story short, the now I'm going to submit it to Crimson, and she's gonna submit to Coinbase and stuff. Um, I assume they will have some extra remarks, and they will ask to change some things. But as far as like L1 support is concerned, they're like, yeah, it looks fine enough, but like we're not going to audit it. It's more like they answer your questions. So yes, at this point we need to file for listing, etc., and that's out of my scope. But so yes, I'm going to put the repository somewhere, and that should be good.
Yeah, that was my question actually. Where's it at?
And yeah, well, there is also some if like I need to polish some things. Like right now, it's good, but like for instance, the way I'm managing half and the way I'm managing Hafa, etc. I'm pretty sure I could improve on the Docker file so that it's more cost efficient, etc. But apart from
So,
this, sorry.
just a couple questions. How does this work? Are they going to wind up running it on their servers, or do we just run it on a server and they point to our server?
No, they are gonna want to run it on their own server.
I assume that would be the
Yeah.
case. Okay.
The way they want it delivered is basically one Docker file, and they do like Docker run and well Docker compose up, and
Okay,
they
so
have the API.
it's potentially several Dockers.
Yeah, it's gonna have to be because I need Hafa and actually no, that's well Hafa and then another Docker running the API itself,
Okay.
um, which grew in size tremendously, mostly because Hive has like many operations. Like when you look at the Bitcoin implementation, it's like managed transfers done, whereas we have like probably like 100 different operations that can change balances, and you need to keep track of all the little virtual operations and stuff. So that's
What you could do that would probably dramatically reduce the size of your database is just filter out the custom JSON,
mm,
and you'll probably drop 90% of the operations. So your whole database will drop to almost nothing. It'll drop by probably almost 9x.
wow. Okay, that's interesting. I mean, I can literally also drop the posts from half.
Yeah, but trust me, it's the custom JSON that's pretty much all. Yeah,
I mean, literally, what I care about is mostly virtual operations, and then like a few small operations like transfer, escrow,
transfers obviously anything that does a transfer.
stuff like this. But yeah, so long story short, right now we can submit that, and Coinbase has a resource to run like a full node, quote unquote. But it would be nice-ish if like we can improve it so that it runs on like much less data than that. Um, so yes, there's that. But also I don't want to like overly optimize before we hear back from them.
Mm-hmm.
Because they may just be like, oh, by the way, we're not looking to integrate. Like this is a requirement, but we may not be looking to integrate right now. Or slash, we will like very
Right.
much.
This is a requirement to get listed, but it doesn't
Yeah.
mean we're going to get listed.
Or it could be like Kraken, where we've been talking to them for like 3 years now, and every 6 months they're like, oh yeah, you're on the list for the next 6 months.
So is this done for Kraken or Coinbase? I was thinking this was done for Kraken.
Oh, it's for Coinbase.
Oh, okay. So Rosetta is a Coinbase thing, not a Kraken
Yes.
thing. I guess I got that mixed up.
No, so Rosetta is the thing from Coinbase. It's just that a few months ago they rebranded that to Mesh API. So it's the same
Okay.
thing, effectively.
Okay. So
Um,
is this something Kraken wanted to, or just
I'm not
Coinbase?
aware. I don't think so.
Okay, I guess I got that mixed up in
No,
my head.
it's not under requirements.
Okay. So have we talked to Kraken before about what kind of thing they want, or they haven't really said?
Yeah, it's usually the same. Like when they decide to list us, they decide to list us.
Okay.
No procedure, fortunately, no bribing like the others.
Gotcha. Hey, Brian.
So yes, there's that, and now I have free time, which is a first. So I'm probably going to look into some HiveMind optimizations. I don't know if you guys looked into it, but I know there was a whole like post being duplicated in like on HiveMind. There is this thing where like the preview of the post is duplicated, and so
Yeah, I fixed that already.
That's a shame. I mean, it's a good thing. But yeah, basically, I'll go through the issues, look through things. If you have stuff to
Okay, so I guess one thing I would suggest is you try running the Rosetta thing with the operations, with the custom operation stripped out, just see what that looks like. It should be quick. It's literally just like a command line option you could pass, and just see what the impact is. I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah. Okay.
But beyond that, yeah, we can talk about stuff that's open in HiveMind. So
I mean, I can also.
I don't know if there's anything else you had right now. Is that pretty much it for now? I'll go over what we're doing, and then we can talk more about what we next. Okay, so we basically tagged 1.27.10, the new release of all the half stuff. So McFar had noticed one minor mistake that was still slipped through, which was that I had not updated the version on the open API, the docs, the Swagger docs. So we got that fixed today. So the new versions now have the right versioning for that too. So thanks for catching that. There's a plan to automate that, and we've actually got code it's in progress to do that automatically, but it's just didn't get finished in time for the release itself. So hopefully we won't have to worry about that next time. So as far as what's in the release, it's a new version of pretty much everything. Hive-D's got a bunch of changes. Some of the stuff related to snapshots, some of the stuff related to the light nodes, so basically the split block log stuff. Some improvements there were made, and there's various other changes of sorts. I'm not really. We could set the hard fork to release in like a month, which is the minimum the exchanges want to go. But I don't know if there's really enough in the hard fork that's make it worth us to do a hard fork yet. I mean, they're useful features, but nothing that's really killer. And so I'm thinking we should wait a little bit more, and I want to get in a change, which is probably going to take a month or two, honestly, which will be to change the way the way transaction signing's done. Basically enhance transaction signing, how many keys can sign things, and lots of other stuff related to that. And it's actually a two-part task. One of it's to change Hive-D, and the other is to basically add support for second layer signing and second layer transactions in half. So I kind of want them to mirror each other so that there's not much difference between the way signing's done at second layer and signing's done at the first layer. So, and it does require a hard fork. So I'm thinking since there's nothing particularly pressing, we should just delay the hard fork until we get that in. And like I said, I think it probably 3 months at the outside it might take. I'm not sure to make all the changes there. So that's Hive-D. In terms of the other apps, there's been significant improvements in the speed of basically reputation tracker. We reduced the amount of memory it uses. It used to take about 2 days to replay, and now it's down to about I think maybe 12 hours. So quite a bit faster. Similar, actually better improvements with the Block Explorer replay times. That used to be about 2 days, and now that's down to, I think, 6 to 8 hours on our fast machine. HiveMind also had as much faster replay now. Used to be 3 days on our fast machine. Now it's down to 2 days. We also speeded up a bunch of the APIs, especially for HiveMind. There's been a lot of improvements there. We also switched from using the old Python server. Now we switched to PostgreST server for HiveMind. So now all the half apps are using PostgreST as their web server, which is good. This means one of the drivers for that, it means in the future we can start adding REST APIs to HiveMind. So without that switch, it wasn't going to be so easy to add REST-based calls to HiveMind. So ultimately, the plan is to kind of replace the existing API for HiveMind with like next generation with a lot of improvements and things like that. But that's down the pike a ways. In terms of performance, besides performance, we also added a bunch of new API calls. to some of the new apps, and they're now part of the standard stack. So balance tracker, reputation API, and the block explorer API are now all standard. So that means all the API nodes will now be supporting that once they update. And so it should be, we'll have a lot of redundancy in terms of our block explorer support. For instance, anybody will be able to point a copy of the block explorer at any of the API nodes and be able to serve up the block explorer. So that kind of gets rid of a problem that we've had for a long time, which is our block explorers have tended to be run by one entity. So if that entity is out of the picture for some reason for a while, then that block explorer might be down for a bit. Now we should be super high availability for our block explorers. And also the API, since it doesn't mean that everybody's got to exactly run we have a reference block explorer UI that's currently nowadays McFarhat's maintaining, but in addition, people can actually still create other UIs, block explorers, and use a lot of those API calls, because the API calls, although they're somewhat tuned for that block explorer, they're actually pretty useful, I think, for anybody who wants to make a block explorer. So that's that. Let's see what else I should mention. We reduced the space on quite a bit of areas, so we've cut down the amount of space required by like HiveMind, by reputation tracker, even by balance tracker, and so everything we've reduced space in various ways. One of the changes we made was the one Howard mentioned, which we got rid of a image preview. A post preview, so it was save some space there. But we also were able to shave off a bunch of indexes and things like that. So space requirements went down quite a bit. So even though, of course, there's a lot more blocks at this point than the previous release, the total size has continued to shrink. And that also adds performance too, as it turns out. So it's good all around. Let's see. So we've been testing it for the past week. We deployed it on production API.hive.blog yesterday. So it's been almost 24 hours now. It's been running there without any problem. And we've had no reported problems so far either. So, but performance-wise, it seems good on the system. Load looks good. And, response times are good on all the API calls that we've seen. So I think at this point, it's ready for everybody, all the API nodes, to start downloading and deploying. So I'm probably just going to leave it there for today. And whoever wants goes, or anybody has any questions, I guess, first about any of that.
Yeah, Dan, hi, it's Chris here. You mentioned that half app has stopped using Python, but instead it's using what?
Oh, HiveMind. Yeah. So it's not half, it's HiveMind. HiveMind was originally written in a mix of Python and SQL. And so we've been slowly replacing some of the Python with SQL. And so HiveMind is actually composed of two parts. There's one part which basically takes the data and takes the data from half and puts it into tables that are appropriate for the HiveMind API calls. So we call that the indexer, because it's basically putting stuff into the database, and it's organizing stuff in the database. And there's the second part, which is a server. And the server basically it's a web server that receives API calls and translate those into SQL queries to get the data, to return it to client applications. So that server used to be a Python-based server. So it was a web server written in Python. And we basically took that, we switched that to PostgreST, which is PostgreST is a server, basically a web server basically designed specifically for SQL for Postgres databases. And so it's faster than it's faster than the old Python server, for one thing. So it has a better response time, latency is lower. And in order to use it, though, we had to get rid of a bunch of Python code that was on the server side. So even though the main queries are SQL queries, they've always been SQL queries, there was some massaging done on the output by Python code before it would get sent out to a client's application. So we had to replace all that code that massaged the query results with pure SQL in order to use it with PostgreST easily. So that's been a big job. We've been working on it for quite a while. We finished it pretty much in 127.8, but then the last release, which was not too long ago, but we found a few more errors to fix, and then while we're at it, we found a bunch of more performance improvements we can make. So that's why we're releasing 1.27.10 with those changes.
Okay, perfect. So post-rest, the way you said it was different. So it's post-rest in my mind. Okay, I understand. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Postgres T. It sounds like Postgres, but it's Postgres, but it puts add a T at the end. So
like post-rest.
the name is a bit wacky, but it's it's a play on Postgres and REST, because you usually use a REST-based API for that server.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So that's for this. So just to confirm, you are planning for Hardfork 28 to be 3 months down the line.
At least. I mean, it'll probably be a little bit more, because we need to give a month of notification. And so I don't like to give a notification till we're actually done. So that always means we usually think about adding 1 month to our completion time before the hard fork. So probably 4 months, I suppose.
4 months. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
So you were mentioning about the transactions and adding support for the layer 2 for like the signing. Could you tell me a bit more detail about the tech side of it?
Yeah, sure. So this is it's kind of an interesting project. So the first thing on the first layer, of course, we have transactions, and by transactions, I'm talking about atomic transactions. You can put several operations together, and they either succeed or fail as a whole. So if one operation and step in the transaction fails, that fails the transaction at the first layer. And we don't really have a similar mechanism at the second layer right now. So that's one of the things we'll be building, is this ability to do atomic transactions at the second layer of operations. Another issue that comes up is signing. So we're going to allow for basically what we call light accounts, which are keys tied, basically name key pairs. You'll be able to attach a second layer account name, and then you could attach a bunch of keys to it that have different capabilities. It's very similar to what we can do in Hive, but these are keys that won't mean anything to Hive. They're just like keys that you can register at the second layer. And the idea is that this is what light accounts is really composed of several things. It's this mapping of a name to a set of keys that have different capabilities. It's this ability to process second layer transactions and to sign those second layer transactions with these second layer keys. So we basically got to write signing code that runs at that layer. We've got to create the table. We've got to create databases. So this is all going to be done via a half application. So basically it's a Postgres-based database application that'll be processing operations, basically custom JSON operations, which are basically your second layer operations. And then basically checking signing on the transaction. There'll be basically a transaction can be embedded inside a custom JSON in this point of view. So you can basically just stick a bunch of commands into a custom JSON and say.
So just to confirm, the L2 is going to be isolated from L1.
Yes, this is as far as the L1 is concerned. It's just a custom JSON. It doesn't mean anything to it. It just totally ignores it, except it says, okay, that's custom JSON, fine. I don't need to know what this does. And the second layer apps are the ones that are processed. So the idea is you'd be able to build anybody can build their own second layer app and process whatever set of transactions, operations that their app understands, and they'll be validating the transactions at the second layer.
Okay, perfect.
So they validate signatures. They validate. So the way they validate the signatures is through this light account stuff. That basically there's a registered set of names and account keys that only the second layer knows about. Now, one of the things we want to do is make sure that it also knows about all the first layer keys. So the idea is that all Hive accounts will automatically have an equivalent light account, which has all the keys that the first layer knows about. But then the idea is you can then add extra keys to that light account, and you can create light accounts that the first layer doesn't know about at all. So everybody who's got a first layer account will automatically also just by default have a second layer account.
Okay, perfect. Just to confirm, the Half app will be made in C++? What is the language?
It'll be primarily SQL. Pretty much all our Half apps are SQL based.
Okay, so SQL.
That tends to be the most efficient way to do it. So
yeah, that's clear. I just wanted to confirm.
Yeah, good question. Let's see. Any other questions about any of that right now?
Yeah, regarding the reputation tracker, the block explorer, you mentioned that you cut down the the stuff from 2 days to 12 hours, or to 6 to 8 hours. The So you mentioned like you removed, what is it, post preview stuff,
Yeah, so
to
the
like.
post preview is removed from HiveMind. So HiveMind is probably the biggest right now. It's the biggest half app we have in terms of storage, and it's partly because it was ported from it was originally, this was the existing application before we had Half. So it was our first sort of Postgres based application. So we ported it to support work under Half, and so now we've been going back over time and optimizing it some. So as we've become pretty familiar with its internals at this point. So every once in a while we'll spot a place where it could be made more efficient. That was just one of those cases. So it made it more efficient by, there was some duplicate data basically that we found in the database that we could render differently. But speeding up the other ones, there's a couple techniques we use to speed them up. One of the things we found is that, at least my experience is that often we have a lot of the raw data goes into Half it's just a huge bunch of operations. And a lot of times I've found that it's more efficient to get that operations into specialized tables rather than to just try to index the huge stream of operations.
Data, yeah, okay.
Yeah, because that way you basically concentrate the data you need into a more local area, and that results in API calls that work much faster because all the queries are on those smaller tables. So that's one of the things we've been doing to speed things up as well, is to do more of that kind of movement of the data to a more convenient form for the API.
Okay. So just to man, I'm sorry if I'm taking a lot too much of your
No,
time.
that's fine. Just take your time.
Specialized database you mentioned. So one specialized database, or is it multiple specialized databases?
So basically, each Half, there's one database. It's the Half database, and in that database, we use a schema, one schema per Half application. So a schema is a bunch of group of related tables.
Yeah.
And when you create a new Half app, you basically assign a schema for your application. So we've got several such applications right now. There's the balance tracker one. There's the reputation tracker. There's HiveMind. So each of those is a separate schema with its own set of tables. And the way those tables get built, we have something we run a loop that's constantly. There's one loop for each application that's constantly running, and that loop is just checking the main Half database, which is getting all the data from Hive D. It's reading the block data with all the raw operations, which are getting put into tables, this Half tables. And then this loop reads the operations, and anytime it sees an operation that this particular application is interested in, it'll take that data, extract the data from it, and modify its own local tables. So, for instance, if you're writing a game, you would write a loop that sits there reading the operations from the main tables, and then creates your own the tables that are needed by your particular game, for instance.
Okay.
And that's exactly what HiveMind does. That's what so Balance Tracker, for instance, creates tables to keeps track of the historical balances of each account in the system. So every time a new account gets created, it records that there's a new account in its tables, and then every time there's a balance change in one of those accounts, it modifies. It's got a running total balance that it's modifying for that account, for each account.
Okay.
So it's mainly watching transfer operations and any other operation that involves a transfer of funds of some sort, like if you get some reward or something like that, it'll modify that account balance, for instance. And so that's the balance tracker one, and then reputation tracker basically modifies. It tracks accounts reputation, so that loop looks for any operation that changes basically a vote for a post written by an account. It modifies updates the reputation. So that's kind of the general gist of each Half app. They have two pieces. They have the loop that processes data from the blockchain, and then they have a Postgres T server, which is waiting for API calls from client applications. And the idea behind all this is basically everyone can make their own custom API for their application. So you can design an API that's perfectly suited to whatever your web application is, just with the data you need, and you can build the tables that you exactly need. But there's like a generic way to do it. All the data you need is already available in a database, and you just got to reformat it to your own particular needs.
Okay.
And the ideas behind it is all the different API nodes can run the same Half server, And then all you got to do if you want to get your application decentralized across the whole set is just convince API node operators to run your software on the server, because they already have most of the requirements. They've already running the Half database, so they got all the data there, and they would just basically add your app, and then it's like a loop that's going to run and read data and then provide API calls.
Okay, yeah, perfect. So just to tie in with the discussion we were having earlier, where 4 months down the line you want to be creating a separate, isolated database for the apps, for the layer 2 apps, is HiveMind going to be down the line 4 months going to be connecting to that app, or is it just going to remain connected to the, or is this going to be a separate thing?
Well, so when I say separated, they're basically separated by the schemas. So each schema is basically protected. It's it's using the generic security system of the database. So one app cannot write to another app's database, and none of the apps can write to Half's database. The central data, the central part of the database, that's the schema that holds all the blockchain data. So it's like a read-only. They have a read-only access to each other to some extent, but they can't write to each other. So that's how the isolation is done, just through standard Postgres security.
Okay, so meaning that the update they will do 4 months down the line will affect the whole all apps.
Yeah, the update we're doing will, because it'll add new signing capabilities. So new transaction signing capabilities will be available. It really won't change any of the existing apps, to be honest. I mean, they will need the nodes will need to update because of it, because they'll need to do Hive version, but it won't be, those apps themselves won't change because of that, although we'll undoubtedly update them with improvements along the way too.
Okay, perfect. What else do I have? Yes, you mentioned added new API calls for Block Explorer, repetition, and balance checker. Is there a commit link that would show what new API
so the best way to see the API now is we now have it's all online. So if you go to api.hive.blog, I think if you go directly, but let me just double check first. We've basically got Swagger documentation for all of it.
Yes, directly for that link it opens.
Yeah.
Okay. So it opens.
You see there's a drop down on the side there at the top that says Half Block Explorer. You can select, if you do that drop down, you can see the API. You can switch between the API sets for each transaction, for each application. So so right now by default it's opening up for me to the Half Block Explorer API set, but you can also see the balance tracker one, reputation tracker.
I only see Half BE-API.
Yeah, go at the top. You look at the top right. Go to the top right corner.
Okay, I found it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's why I wanted to tell you that, because it's easy to miss that little selector there.
Yeah. Okay,
so you can basically, if you're familiar with Swagger, you can use and even test out an API call fill it in with parameters and stuff like that. Try.
Perfect. That take care of this. I'll let someone else ask questions.
Okay, so let me see if Bartek had anything to add. I don't know if Bartek, you wanted to mention anything, not in particular or anything.
Well, maybe related to our plans or related to services we want to show. Maybe we should also mention some works on Wax.
Which go ahead and update progress there is a good idea.
Which were actually done, and we got initial support for signing extensions, and right now our Wax library will be able to support signature providers like Keychain, PigDev, Vault, and we are working on MetaMask support. I hope that we will make a first official release of Wax soon, probably in next week, and it also will include initial support for Python, where it will be possible to use transaction creation, code signing, typed calls to build operations, and actually first part of Wax just specific to transactions and processing them. And I hope it will make possible to write some Python-based tools and efficiently prepare transactions and broadcast them to the blockchain.
What about the API calls? Does it support API calls too?
It doesn't not yet fully support API calls, similar to TypeScript version, which already did it. It will be another point of our work which we are focusing on. And I hope it could be done in next month or two, because it is just quite complex task to make similar support of features as in TypeScript. But of course, it supports basic API calls. So there are predefined some calls which was required internally by Wax. Of course, it is possible to write own manually specification of given API call and perform it. But what we would achieve is dynamic creation of call structure as it is done in TypeScript and fully supported by IntelliSense tools. So that part is still missing here. But as I said, I hope it will be completed quite soon. What more? I hope support for keychain, which will be this week integrated to our new tool Dancer. Finally, we will bring it to the top, not bring it to the top, and we will be able to push another release of application and finally replace old condenser code. What more?
I guess you had some size reduction, right? So it's a much smaller.
Yes, of course. I just forgot. And because we had in mind that front end is really impacted by download size, we were able to significantly reduce size of Wax, and it was 3 times. It is right now 3 times smaller than previously. Earlier, the library size will similar to 10 megabytes. Right now it is near to 3 megabytes of uncompressed size. It also has really very reduced number of dependencies, and actually there is only one tool, Beekeeper, which is responsible for using internally stored private key just for signing. And I hope both of libraries will be really very good start point for writing front-end applications. Yes, I think that's most of the features. The others I will describe probably in some articles promoting both tools. And third library called Worker B, which is based on these lower levels, which is specific to supporting bots and providing a very simple way for writing few line bots having really great functionality. That's the work which we have done actually if last 1.5 months, maybe up to 2 months.
Okay, and I guess just for people who are not, we've been testing Wax primarily. Oh, okay. I'll just say one thing. We've been testing Wax primarily the Python version. We've been testing with Clive, which is a new command line wallet, and we've been testing Wax primarily with Denser, which he just mentioned, which is a replacement for Condenser. And we've also got another application called Transaction Inspector, which is basically a tool for debugging potential problems with the transaction. And that's another web-based application. So that's testing the JavaScript version.
Yes.
Okay. And I guess Spirit Search, you had a question?
Yes, Bartek, since you've been working on the new version of the condenser, one of the requests I have, and if it's possible, could you make your condenser be easily be deployable to Vercel? Because Vercel is basically a free, a framework that we can basically just plug in and make the changes and see how it's playing out. The current condenser does not work with Vercel. I mean, you can try, but you cannot deploy the site. You have to, do it on a standalone system. So if it's possible to, make it's going to be React, right?
Yeah, so you can look at, if you want to look at it and try it now, it's available. It's called, if you go to the gitlab.simcad.com, it's called Denser, DENSER.
DENSER. Okay. Oh, I will try that. And
yeah, it is a React-based application. Oh, yeah, there's the link.
Okay, there. Thank you.
So let us know actually what you find if you find any problems with
Yes,
what you're
yes,
trying to do.
we were actually we were trying to deploy the condenser. I asked Gandalf also that but we were unable to do it with Vercel, and the only solution was to get a server, put it on a server, and deploy it from there. So if it was
Gandalf,
possible,
was that condenser or denser? Do you know which one he's talking about? You were trying.
No, it was
Well, the only will be supported is denser because condenser would be.
No, I mean when you were trying what he was talking about, did you try it with denser or did you try with condenser?
Yeah, I don't remember trying that.
Okay.
actually what Gandalf said was he doesn't know what Vercel is at that time. So that was basically it. So, but if it's possible to deploy it on Vercel, because that's like a really fast way for people to come in, check whether what systems are working, what calls are working, and what's not. And it's a perfect. I mean, I love the condenser. It's an amazing tech that has been created as a React front end. But if it can work with Vercel, it would make deployment and it would make testing significantly faster for us, and we won't have to go into the hassle of trying to deploy a server, deploy it on a server, and then point it to a
Okay, I'm not familiar with that, but I'll definitely look it up after the meeting.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, I found that. Sorry, I found that thread from January. I will let developers know about this Vercel thing. Thank you.
Could you point a link to this framework somewhere?
I have it already.
Aha, okay.
Yes, this is this.
Vercel, okay.
Yes, I mean, because that would really help out. We made the value plan site on Vercel for and it was React based, and it took us like seconds to deploy it and start unit testing and start testing components and start testing the backend. It was really easy for us to do. But right now the condenser does not allow it. I'll check the denser and I will get back to you guys.
Okay, sounds good.
If no one has questions,
go for it.
I'm happy to give a quick update. If no one has questions.
Go for it.
All right, cool. So let me give some updates about our work on Block Explorer. So recently, we've been actually comparing a lot of the current Block Explorer available on other chains, Ethereum, Bitcoin, and everything else. So we started incorporating more functionality from what we see there. So for example, we just finalized an export to CSV functionality across all of our tabular displays. So wherever we see data available on the Block Explorer, there will be a functionality that allows you to export this display. It's currently limited to one page, but I mean, for the current page you are on, of course, you have to switch pages to export more data. But we are planning also down the road to have like a tool under Block Explorer that allows you to have an export with dates and whatnot, so you can decide what data you want to export, and instead of just doing one page at a time. We also recently did some improvements to the witness schedule page. We included the backup witness, flagged the backup witness. We've done a lot of improvements to the UI of the page. We've added a copy functionality to all block transaction hashes everywhere, so that it's really easy just to copy this thing without losing any extra numbers or digits, or just capturing the 10 digits or 10 numbers instead of the whole hash. We've done a revamp of the user profile display in terms of links, so that all the links are bookmarkable across the user tab. So on the user profile, you have the operations, you have the comments, you have the interactions. So all of these are now included inside the links, thanks to a suggestion by I forgot who, but thank you
ABW.
whoever suggested it.
ABW.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, probably.
Andre.
So yeah, that's it. So yeah, it's fully functional now. If you can grab a link and just share it with anyone, and you will have all the filtering, the current tab, and all the details available without needing to search or query again. We've done some also real estate improvements, like the filtering sections became collapsible. So now you have like a filtering button instead of everything showing all the time. You have much better real estate experience on your user profile screen. You can open, collapse your filtering sections.
Are you guys testing on mobile at all?
We are, but not everything. So you might have missed a thing or two.
I was just curious.
But yeah,
not that I've tried it personally. I was just curious.
Yeah, we usually do. But if there could be sometimes things that are being missed. We did a lot of UI improvements. I mean, we unified the look and feel technically throughout the whole site. There were some missed round edges for containers. Tooltips were not looking nice. Some spacing improvements. So a lot has been done on the whole unified look and feel. We also have a new footer. So there's a cool footer now showing on the Block Explorer that includes links to so many things, like the Hive.io, the Hive blog, our developer portal, the glossary, our GitHub, our GitLab. So all of these are now available under the Block Explorer. So hopefully this gives more accessibility to anyone who is viewing the Block Explorer to read more about Hive, and also improves SEO. So so all is good, I guess. Yeah. So given now we have the new functionality for the API on the balance tracker, so now we're kicking off the work on incoming HP delegations. Hopefully we'll get the incoming RC delegations available soon as well. We're working on the revamp of the balance history chart. It was very, very limited before. So now we have the monthly view. So we can get daily, monthly, and yearly. I think there is an issue with it. My dev reported today, so we'll work with Michael on this, see what's going on. Okay, what else? So yeah, we're also working on potentially new blocks API endpoints. So as I said, I mean, we're looking at other explorers. So some of the things that come in really handy and are generally available on other block explorer, like you get how many transactions per block in a block table. You have the block size, you have number of confirmations, you have block reward, you have fees. Let's call it RC here instead of fees. So we're trying to come up with a new display that contains all the blocks by default, kind of like the chart that we have, but it's going to be a separate table where you see all the blocks. You can, of course, filter, but you have a lot more data than simply just the block numbers when you do a search. So we're trying to figure out the best way to actually fetch all this data. As I said, number of transactions, block size, confirmations, how many producers have confirmed this block at this moment, block reward, whatever the reward for the witness went, or the RC that were used to generate this block. And there's
just one thing. I don't think you'll be able to get right now the number of confirmations for a block.
Yeah.
Because the way, so one way, of course, a block gets confirmed is another block gets created. So that's a sort of confirmation, right? But with Hive, we have the fast confirmations, which means that as soon as a block gets produced, all the witnesses will generate a fast confirm, which is really cool because it means we can get a block confirmed. Right? The problem is those transactions don't actually get put into the blockchain. They're seen by the other witnesses. So all the witnesses know which witnesses have approved the block, but we don't actually put that in the blockchain. And all the Hive application has is that data. And I don't believe there's even an API
Yeah,
get
I
that
don't think
data from Hive.
there's a sense, because other blockchains doesn't have that. I mean, we have instant finality, well, almost instant.
Yeah. So I
So-
mean, what we can say is, what we can do is we can say we can report the last irreversible block, which effectively says, you know, every block before that is confirmed. So
yeah, but
that's probably what you'd want. That's the only thing I think you'd really want to do is report the last
for the
irreversible
most
block.
time, it will be boring.
Yeah, it's going to be boring, exactly.
Yeah,
but you know, it could be I can see a case
boring
when it's
is
useful,
good,
right?
Yeah,
I mean,
boring is
but
good. I mean, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, but there is a time when it could happen too, right? We could be in a case of a forking condition. So I think displaying the last irreversible block is a good idea. Probably,
yes,
you know,
at the in the beginning versions, my idea was to put the status icon to show that we are healthy, or some other status with potential issues. Like, for example, if last irreversible block is like far away from us.
yeah, something. Now, I think we had the participation rate, which is sort of quite similar. That's available somewhere or another, but I'm not sure where it's at. I think, or maybe we were talking about it adding. I don't know if we actually ever got it added, the participation rate yet. But I know there was an issue at least discussing adding the participation rate. But I think it could be interesting to show the last irreversible block too, just maybe on the front page. We certainly have the data, so
possibly.
there's no good reason, I think, not to show it. I don't. Maybe it's somewhere there, but I don't see it, so I don't think we actually have it displayed right now. Maybe we could just display it. Maybe we could just, you know, where we have this table that says last blocks. Maybe we could just. Well, the thing is, I don't know if this page is updating. So, but when it's in live mode and it's updating, we could just have it updating there.
Yeah, and maybe it's boring for us, but for other chains, maybe adding this one, because usually the block that displays is the last irreversible block.
Yep.
But maybe
and for the outside world, I mean, for the outside world, they're just used to seeing, okay, number of confirmations. How many times has this block been confirmed? So when they don't spot this, they should find an alternative on Hive, right? They should understand.
We should let them know that.
And I also like the idea
on
by
Hive we have ultimate
having
confirmation. Like
yes,
on the blockchain, on Bitcoin blockchain, we never have that. We can like go from zero and rewrite.
Yeah, and I also like your idea, Gandalf, about maybe like an icon that shows some status, like about maybe the block. So it's definitely confirmed, maybe some green icon. And I mean, you said it might be boring, but for someone outside, okay, so this block is okay. I mean, we're good. So, you know, something like that.
Yeah, maybe instead of reporting it as the last irreversible block as a number, we would report it as we would say basically, I don't know what we call it yet, but basically it'd be the last block that was irreversible from the head block. So when we're right at the head block, it'd be at 0, and then, you know, it'd be -1, -2, -3 or something to show that we're behind, that the last irreversible block is a few behind the head block.
Yeah,
we'd maybe have it green normally
of blocks behind.
Yeah, and we could show it green normally, and then maybe red if it's, you know, falls a couple blocks behind.
Yeah. I like that. Okay, a few more things we're considering, you know, as enhancements. So, like for example, displaying a Hive price chart. Of course, this needs to come like from exchanges. So, so the caveat there is probably how I mean, the API that we can fetch data, including maybe market cap and the price for a certain time, and not to have timeouts from calling this API. So that's one thing
but
to
do
consider.
do we want to have like external data here? It's
yeah, that's the question in all this.
Yeah, charts would be fine for internal market, and that could be useful.
Yeah, I kind of tend to think the same. I think we should stay away from true external sources for the Block Explorer itself. Now, like you said, we could get the data from the internal exchange. So that'll give Hive price.
Yeah. But the only reason I'm thinking about external exchanges is because, I mean, outside users will always think, okay, I was seeing on Binance, and what was the price on Binance, you know? That's the thing. But again, I mean, there is a problem with the API that will provide you the data, and this could get ugly. So we need to rely on them.
So I mean, we do, just to let you know, I mean, of course, internally, I still have all the code for block trades, and we have APIs in there that support like aggregating prices from across many exchanges and giving averages and things like that and historical numbers. And I still run all that because I have to do my taxes, and that's how my taxes are computed. So we could potentially expose that API. It's still a private API, of course, but at least it would be one we know who's managing it.
I do publish. I've got something like that running behind the scenes for V4V, but to be honest, I heavily focus on Binance's API purely because, firstly, none of the HBD prices mean anything.
Yeah,
I use the internal market to Hive only, and then I focus on. I look at CoinMarketCap and I look at CoinGecko and Binance, and as far as I can see today, those are the only three that are reliable. The Korean one is just too crazy sometimes, and honest, behind the scenes, I'm having to use Binance most of the time, so I'm focusing.
You can't trade on the.
I can't trade on the Korean.
So whatever good price they have there, you can't get.
So basically, and I ignore, ain't none.
But I mean, in fairness, that price is a real price though, and it's often the better price. It's just
people are trading with it. True.
Yeah. So
I mean, if you want averages, couldn't we just get it from CoinGecko?
Well, that's they are providing averages. That's
but what I found is that CoinGecko, the trouble with that is that CoinGecko seems to weight prices that very few people can get.
Right, but that's you say very few people, but it's you. So for your business point of view, that's a perfectly reasonable point of approach. But for Hive users in general, it's not necessarily so true. It's more.
And add to that, I mean, with CoinGecko, I mean, we use CoinGecko for ActiveIt. We have a public API, and we use that. The only issue is rate limiting, so we have to wait until the next call, maybe every 7 minutes, so that we do another call, so that we don't get blocked by their API. So there is a waiting time there.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like I think other than just showing them price in the internal market, that's probably what we should stick with, because we are trying to make something that's really solid and reliable in terms of the API.
Yeah.
Let's stick to
We'll put it aside. We'll put it aside because we have so many things. I'll mention a few as well. So we have.
If you were to just show the CoinGecko information and just mention transparently that this will update every 7 minutes, it won't cause a problem to anyone who's internally trading.
I don't think it's a good
problem.
We're not.
Just mention that it takes 7 minutes to update.
Yeah, but we want to be very stable. Like, we don't want to depend on too many external tools anyways. Like that's why the internal market has good value in that sense.
Yeah, so I mean, the idea here is that we're building off our own infrastructure. This is kind of a core tool.
Yeah.
It's if it was just somebody's random site, that would be one thing. You can do whatever you kind of do whatever you want. That's cool. But here we're trying to build an app that's, we want a bunch. We basically, I mean, I don't see any reason why most of the API nodes can't actually run a copy of the web server that supplies this data. So I think we could have, 10 copies of the Block Explorer. And in that case, I think let's standardize on the stuff that.
Yeah.
Did we lose Dan?
Yeah, I think so.
I think we totally lost him.
Dan, we can't hear you.
That is like the limit is 1.5 hours for the meeting and then internet off.
Oh no, our Meet app is better than that.
Archange, the meeting is not dead. We're just waiting for Dan. Just so you join.
Actually, while we're on this topic, MC Farhad, I think I'll add some more issues regarding the Explorer, because I noticed that on when you look at a profile, you don't display all of the data. Was this like on purpose, or like for instance, you don't see the voter expiry date? Is this on purpose? Like, are you trying to have like a simplified view and then a more expanded view later, or is this more that of a forgotten thing?
I'm happy to get all the tickets from you, Hao, but yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'll have to check it. So the voting expiry date, this is what you're mentioning? I'm not sure. I'll have to.
It's one of multiple things that is added.
Okay. Throw them in a ticket.
Yeah,
we'll vet them together.
I think it's just like to get to feature parity with the old Hive blocks, where basically you can just like make a field where you dump like all of the data in a little JSON thing, so that you have all of the so that any like advanced user, quote unquote, can get the information, because otherwise they have to
absolutely
from the API.
We built a lot of functionality based on Hive blocks, so if something is missed, we're more than happy to add it, of course.
Okay, awesome.
Just open a ticket like always.
Yeah, I will.
Dan, are you back?
Yeah, sorry, I dropped off. That's probably, I might have, I lost power here, so it's had to find my phone in the dark. So I'm back on my phone right now.
No worries. Okay, so a couple of more things just to mention. So we're considering adding daily transactions per day as a ballpark figure, and maybe a chart, a lifetime total transaction count across the whole chain. We've seen this implemented in Etherscan. This is all core data for the blockchain. Average transactions per block. I think Spirit Surge was asking about this earlier with discussion with Gandalf and
the Black Widow. Black Widow.
Or AW.
AW.
Yeah, so this is also, I think, useful data for external viewers. Daily active user count, total wallet addresses or accounts. TVL, our vision to TVL, like how many Hive power is available on chain, and how many are in savings, HBD, Hive, both in chart and USD value. And finally, total transfer volume. So how many transfers have been done on chain? And we're considering even a breakdown of incoming and outgoing transfers, like outgoing meaning going to exchange accounts, and incoming coming back from.
It will be pain in the ass to try to figure out which accounts are used by
exchanges,
and they usually some services are using, like, for example, Binance account, and they're just like front-end facade for actually Binance, etc. So.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, I just saw this data somewhere, and I thought, that's interesting. How many inflows and outflows are happening on the chain? I understand what you're saying. I mean, we just have 7 accounts we know of that are exchanges, but yeah, I don't know. It's just a thought that we had in mind. I mean, we can definitely.
But the idea about the total daily transfers is.
Yeah, I think that's more interesting.
Yeah. Okay. All right, cool. Sorry, guys, I took a lot of time, so this is
no, it's cool. It's cool. Absolutely no. I mean, I think some of the statistics will be interesting. I often wonder about such things too. I'm not so much about the exchange-related stuff, but just the stuff about the data, about the blockchain itself.
And count all the custom JSONs. Because
we do have the breakdown by block. So we have that data already block by block. It's just, I think he's just talking about aggregating it over time periods.
Exactly. 4 hours, 12 hours, that kind of thing. I think that's really useful.
We'll probably, once we create the tools for Block Explorer, like Candidate Exporter, we can probably generate something like a time frame for finding out the particular type of transactions, how many times they are being used or generated. We can probably expand on this aspect.
I actually do something like this with all of the pod pings, my custom JSONs. I put them all into a MongoDB time series, so I can see exactly how many per minute and per hour, and it's all very fancy. But something even much more basic than that, of just transactions per second, sort of aggregated over the minutes and hours, would be great.
Okay, anybody else have anything they want to talk about today?
I might as well just jump. I just put in a very tiny upgrade to Beam, just to update some old dependencies, just to try and keep that thing so that you can install it alongside more modern packages. And I think it's working. Some of the old tests don't work, and I don't know whether I really want to spend many hours trying to figure out why half a dozen tests are failing. But I'll sort of test it myself, but it seems to be fine. And I think block trades, you put in a change to some limits somewhere, and I might just roll that into what I did as well.
Yeah, so I added limits based on the API calls now have limits on some of how many posts.
Yeah, you put limits on the post counts.
He's gone. He's gone again.
Yeah. Anyway, that's just.
But Brian, are there like many features missing in the upcoming Python WAX to replace your Beam struggles?
I can't make head nor tail of WAX until it's sort of packaged. It's not something I can install or figure out how to use at the moment. The Python side is way behind the JavaScript side, as far as I can see. So
yes, but like transaction signing is like the most that you actually need from such.
I actually don't need I'm not sending very many transactions in most of the code I do. My biggest side is watching the chain.
Okay.
So I think what he needs is something closer to the other library.
Yes, we discussed it lately, and Brian is looking for Python version of Worker B.
Yes,
but that's his dream, and I hope we can do that. But probably we can switch to that in second half of this year.
Yeah,
I've got my own very stable now asynchronous Python code built around Beam and made into async that works. So, but I'll look at whatever comes along later when you get there.
Actually, speaking of libraries, I was talking with the VSC guys about their Go version of a Hive library, and I might go along and add some features to that. I know they have signing already, so it's mostly a matter of like adding support for all of the operations, and then we'll have support for a broadened ecosystem.
Okay, anybody else have anything for today?
Yeah, I know this is not a Hive, funded project, but I've just attached the value plan metrics. This metrics is not like the focus is not the value plan. The metrics of the value plan is that there is a section called onboarding data for 2024. What we've basically done is we have taken the site, we've scrubbed the data all the way from Hive SQL. We've taken many metrics against the creators, and we've basically logged them. So if you were to go to the site and you were to go to onboarding data 2024, that will show you a bunch of pie charts and bar charts. This is just, yesterday it's been deployed. There's a lot of polishing to do. There's tables to be included. They're supposed to be, we're planning to basically include a feature where people, if you click a creator's name, it will show all the user names that person has onboarded. we're looking at 65,000 accounts for 2024, and across 850 creators. So right now we've just presented the data in a simplified manner, where we've taken the top 15 and then we have shown the others. I mean, despite that, you can still see that there are certain creators who are leading in certain sectors, like post or custom JSON activities. Some are expected, some are surprising, which like for instance, the commentary of orders has a significant amount of blob, I suppose I could say, towards the chain. We're talking about 70,000 transactions to date, and so there's like good data you can get from this, and you can see, okay, these are the accounts, this is the project, this is doing this, and this is sending so many transfers outgoing, this is like so many incoming transfers, and so on. We're also planning to add in further analysis, where we will be taking the accounts onboarded by the creator and running it against how many of those users stake more than 100 Hive. And with that, we will have we will be able to signify the quality of the onboarded people. So this way we know, okay, if there's a creator who has onboarded 6 people, but they have that those 6 people they have onboarded has resulted in a 300,000 Hive being staked, then that person's quality is extremely high. So if someone wants to use a metric to measure the onboarding, the quality of the onboarders, I want to be using this site for 2024. So if anyone has any feedback in terms of code contribution or in terms of features that you think would help with onboarding data, I would love to hear it. I'm all ears, because that helps the chain.
Sounds cool.
Yeah, well, so if anyone has feedback, just let me know. Attach the link in the chat. That's all I have.
Okay. Does anyone has anything else, or do we call it?
Yes, 2 things from my side. Sorry. I'm sorry for delaying this meeting. Swagger UI is at 1.27.8. When will it be updated to 1.27.10?
Yeah, I guess Dan mentioned at the start of the meeting. I mean, I noticed it, and he referenced it. They will be fixing it soon.
Okay.
It's just a display bug. Yeah.
Okay, that's sorry. Then I repeated it. Okay, so last one is the discussion in the core devs. That is the Waltech was mentioning the
BLS signature.
Yeah, BLS solution. Is that ever going to happen? Do we have space for it? I just wanted to know your own thoughts as core devs who are working on the chain. What do you thought about?
We're going to look at that as part of the work we're doing with changing the signing, the key signing. As far as we need to do, so I know there's been some disagreements on the team about what various approaches in terms of how to implement a different signing besides. So BLS was one option. There was also some other options too, but I think we'll probably implement that as part of that whole process. Some kind of more advanced signing option, which is more appropriate for multi-sigs basically.
So it's going to be in parallel to the already established system.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's it from my side. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. See you guys.
Thank you. Goodbye.
All right.
Thank
Take
you.
care.